For more than a week now, the Hambantota port in Sri Lanka has been witnessing to an ever-worsening strike by port workers. Now, such has been the intensity of the protest there that even the Sri Lankan Navy has had to step in to do some crowd control. The protesting of the port workers has obstructed the operations of many of the merchant ships there. Some ships were even damaged. Now, there were also reports of obstruction to the movement of ships, including a Japanese carrier. The Lanka Navy had to intervene and fired warning shots at the protesters. So what exactly is causing all of this unrest? Is the port the scene of a larger geopolitical game? To bring us perspective on this, we're going to have a couple of guests joining us. Firstly, our senior international correspondent and an old Lanka hand, Padma Rao. Thanks so much for joining us. Also via Skype from Colombo, our Iqbal Atas of the Sunday Times. Thank you so much, sir, for your company. And we have Nuvan Senaratna of the Rivera Media Group. We appreciate your time and perspective as well. So let's get some perspective on this to talk about why this is important. Let's start with you first, Padma. This is an issue that both India and the U.S. are also concerned about. Why is this of growing concern?
Well, Archit, as you know, it's the location of Sri Lanka. It's located at a very strategic position in the Indian Ocean. It is where it's at the crossroads of the oil shipping lanes that ply from the Straits of Malacca all the way through the Middle East and the Gulf to other countries. So any port in Sri Lanka or the Chinese or any one country taking control, practically taking control of any one port, is naturally of concern to all the powers who have interests in the region.
Right. Can we also talk about, why other countries perhaps are concerned? Naturally, is it specifically because of the location, or are there other, strategic alliances that may be concerned about the fact that if that's now accessible to China, why is the U.S., for example, concerned about that specifically?
Well, because the United States has its own interests in the region. The United States' largest and most important overseas military base is on the island of Diego Garcia, which is further south in the Indian Ocean. And it is the lookout point for the United States to keep an eye on Afghanistan, on Pakistan, on various things in the region. As for India, as far as India is concerned, this is all about the string of pearls strategy by China. India is naturally concerned because 80% of India's cargo passes through Colombo port, for instance. And, sprawling Chinese presence in the region is naturally of concern to New Delhi.
All right, let's bring in our guests as well. Joining us from Colombo, we'll start with you, Mr. Iqbal. Thanks for your perspective. What do we make of this? What's the port, the strikes there? Even people there are not too thrilled by this sort of a new initiative. What's it like there?
Well, as far as the deal is concerned, it's closed. The facilitation agreement was signed just this week, and the Chinese company, that is the China Merchants Port Holdings Company, has a larger stake, that is 80% of the holdings, while the government of Sri Lanka will hold the remaining 20%. So the strike at the moment is has two specific demands. One is that the strikers, whom the Minister of Ports and Shipping, Arjuna Ranatunga, known better for his cricketing abilities, says he's moved by the opposition parties, particularly those supporting former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. So they are demanding permanency as well as protesting against the deal with China.
What about, in terms of this sort of issue? China, as we mentioned, is going to buy, 80% stake there in that port. The government announcing that deal, but saying, to Sri Lanka, saying it is not an outright sale to a foreign power, but just a lease for about 99 years. But for the port, workers there, this is now week 2, and even people there have joined in on the protest. Why are they simply just not accepting it? Why are they getting out and really, making sure people hear their voices?
Well, if you look at the history of this particular deal, during the presidential elections in January last year, as well as the parliamentary elections in May this year, China was virtually a dirty bird in the platforms of the present Maithripala Sirisena Ranil Wickremesinghe government. They criticized China and Rajapaksa's own involvement with them and said that they would not go ahead with some of the major Chinese deals like the one in Hambantota, as well as the development of the Colombo port. But from the government's point of view, investment has not been forthcoming. the West has not been offering them assistance at all. So they are caught up in a situation where at first they tried to convert the Chinese loan. Most of the $360 million assistance have come from the Exim Bank of China. So when they failed to convert them into equity, this was the result.
All right, let's bring in Nuvan now back into the conversation. As we do know, the home district and the political stronghold of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. If you look at the latest protests, though, through that prism, do you feel there may be some kind of a political, opportunity there, and that is exactly why this is all happening with those protests instigated by some of his supporters?
I think some are trying to portray it as a political protest, but if you look at the numbers, there are 482 workers who are attached to the management for Magampura Port Management Company. So they recruited for that particular company, but and the Port Minister Arjuna Ranatunga, he said that he agreed to recruit them to that particular company, but the protesters are demanding to recruit them to the Sri Lankan Port Authority, but government is not willing to accept their demanding, and I think after that some political representatives, especially from the opposition, came and showed their hand, and they said clearly that they will help. But there was some instance that some people who stood for that politicians and they said no, we don't want your help. We just want to secure our jobs. So I think there is some political influence, but this is not a political planned protest. That is what I'm seeing looking back these weeks.
Nuwan, hello Nuwan, this is Padma. It's very nice to have you on our show. Just staying with Mr. Rajapaksa and the insinuations raised by the current government that Mr. Rajapaksa's supporters may be behind these protests in Hambantota. Of course, we all know, Nuwan, that the Hambantota port contract itself was given to the Chinese by Mr. Rajapaksa, by the former president, and yet, Mr. Rajapaksa himself and your former foreign minister, Professor G.L. Peres, on a very recent China visit at the end of November, they warned almost uncannily ahead of the protests that erupted in Hambantota that there would be massive unrest and there would be public displeasure if the Chinese were to continue to insist on acquiring more land. Originally it was 750 acres and now they're asking for 15,000 acres. So is the government in Colombo likely to capitulate on that? And also, please throw some light on, how could that be a coincidence that Mr. Rajapaksa was in China at the end of November and barely a week later or 10 days later, his prophecy came true that indeed people started protesting in Hambantota?
If you look at the picture, that there are only 482 workers who are protesting, but if you look around the country, nobody is raising their voice against what the current government is doing, and they are not protesting to stop asking to stop this deal. So if you look at that, so you cannot say that the whole country is against this particular movement. So, but yeah, there are some people, and there are some rumors. There are rumors. So that those 482 people are from Nil Balakaya or Blue, which is a group created by former government as a youth front for the SLFP. So
yes, yes, please go on.
But recently, some politicians who were ministers of the former regime came to help this particular protest, but the very people who were protesting moved step to them. So then, we have to think twice, are they really motivated by those politicians? Because if they are not hosting. So we have to think twice are they really motivated by them? But and if somebody is going against for what giving the 80% of the Hamad report for the China, then they have to be a government supporters, because the current regime, they clearly criticize what the previous regime doing, and they are selling Sri Lankan land for the China. So if somebody is going against whatever the movement current government is going, then the people who are supporting the current government, not the previous regime.
Yes, if I could just extend that question also to Iqbal, my colleague Iqbal Attas. Welcome on the show, Iqbal. What is your thought? I mean, is it really that innocuous? Because in the meantime, it's not just the port workers who are protesting in Hambantota. I hear that there are also local residents who have joined them. Yes, I am aware that Hambantota is the political constituency of the Rajapaksa family. But surely, you know, there is some amount of public concern at China, a foreign power, acquiring 80% in what is its single largest investment in Sri Lanka.
Well, first of all, I must clarify a point you made a while ago about these 15,000 acres. That should not be confused with the Hambantota port project. The 15,000 acres is for a Chinese industrial park, where they are going to set up industries, and it's going to be self-contained in the sense that they are going to generate their own electricity power, and manufacturing is going to start thereafter. At this point of time, it's not very clear whether Chinese labor will be used, but there are reports that such a matter is under consideration. Now, as for the ongoing strike, the deadline given to the workers tomorrow is 2 p.m. Now, one thing that has to be borne in mind is these workers are demanding that they be taken on to the Sri Lanka Ports Authority, but most interestingly, the Sri Lanka Ports Authority and the Minister of Ports and Shipping, under whom the authority functions, have both refused to sign the agreement. So as a result of which the agreement was signed by the officials of the Treasury and 2 other ministries. So there we see a concrete difference, because under the existing statute, all the ports in the country are governed by the Ports Authority Act, and they are the ones who collect the revenue. But they have been raising strong objections to this, and one of the points they raised was this time limit. They said it should be only for 45 to 50 years, whereas we have now seen the period extending to 99 years with provision for further renewal on mutually agreed terms.
Iqbal, a very quick follow-up before my colleague Archit has a lot more questions for both of you. But don't you think, I mean, isn't it implausible, as you pointed out earlier yourself, the current government came in on the premise that it would overthrow or upturn or reverse many of the controversial agreements made with China. I mean, doesn't the government stand to lose credibility over this issue nationwide, not only in Hambantota?
Well, that's one aspect of it. No doubt it raises questions of credibility. But look at it the other way. Look at the other side of it. The government has been in office for the last 2 years. And in the process, they promised employment for 1 million persons. They have not been able to give that, even in hundreds or thousands. And on top of that, there have not been the desired results in foreign direct investment, which meant that these were some of the inputs that were coming in. And interestingly, $1.2 billion are due from China on this transaction. And I don't think anyone has equaled this form of investment here, although it is undoubtedly a controversial subject.
All right, let's bring in Iqbal back. Let's talk a little bit about some of the, globally, some of the other countries that are perhaps watching and seeing how all of this unfolds. Certainly the United States and India, their strategy. In Sri Lanka, more so that port of Hambantota sits at a very strategic location in the Indian Ocean. Many different oil tankers are using that route. It's a very, a very well-traveled area between Southeast Asia as well as the West. All the major powers have been hovering to get a foothold there, a very strategic location for decades. As we mentioned, the United States certainly being one of them. The timing of this, recent use of the nearby airport also by a U.S. Advanced Maritime Patrol aircraft, is that just a mere coincidence? Or is the United States concerned about the Sri Lanka-China deal over that port? Let's start with you first, Mr. Iqbal.
Yes. Now, there are two aspects here. The port in Hambantota so far, from all the declarations that have been made, is focused almost entirely on commercial operations. And right now, only transshipment operations are taking place. As you will recall, there were two Japanese ships that were held up in the port, and the workers moved in gantry cranes to prevent their exit from the harbor, forcing the deployment of Navy. And to use the minister's own words, the government has lost credibility in the eyes of the international shipping world. And most liners are threatening to boycott Hambantota in the future. As for military operations, most of these activity has been centered in Trincomalee, which is the northeastern port city. In fact, it was not so long ago that we had some U.S. troops training a new Sri Lankan Marine Corps in Trincomalee.
Let's bring in Anuva and get your perspective on this as well. Same question to you about this. Do we anticipate that the U.S. is maybe concerned about maybe an allegiance forming between China and Sri Lanka?
Yes, of course, because because China is the most rivaling country, and they have a very booming economy. But when it comes to Hambantota harbor, I don't think I have to agree with Iqbal, because if such activity is going to occur, then they will choose Trincomalee base, because I think that is the most suitable place for that kind of practice or whatever activities they are going to held. Because so far the Hambantota port is just for the commercial purposes, but I think especially USA is eyeing on this one, because this is one of the most important harbor will be in the coming years, because it is built directly to the one of the busiest areas in the Indian Ocean. So I think, yeah, my answer is yes. But for now, I think USA will focus more on Trincomalee base, because they have carried out a few activities last few months also. So I think we have to wait and see what will happen.
I'd like to come in here with a question for Iqbal. Iqbal, you know that there is a lot of concern in India as well as in, I'm sure the United States is also having thoughts, as Archit pointed out. But in India, I mean, we all know, I'm being a bit cynical here, but there is no such thing as just straightforward investments as far as the Chinese are concerned in the region, especially in this corridor and in the Indian Ocean string of pearls that they're trying to build up. So isn't there the fear, also because the lines blur between private investment and the actual official government of China, isn't there a fear that, eventually the Chinese are not just investing, but they're also strategically building along the route for, if should they feel that their presence is suddenly required for strategic purposes? So is there a feeling in Sri Lanka, or do you feel, Iqbal, that the Sri Lankan government in Colombo understands and is acknowledging New Delhi's concerns? Because after all, India is the big neighbor in the region, in the immediate region.
Yes, undoubtedly there are concerns for New Delhi, and these are issues that have been lingering over the years. Now, if I may point out, we have the International Container Terminal in Colombo, which was built with Chinese assistance. That is almost facing the Galle Face Promenade. And there was a time shortly after the terminal was declared open that a Chinese submarine came and berthed there, and this did raise concerns with the government of India, and I believe they did raise issue. So this is not something new. There have been concerns expressed every now and then, but this is the real issue here is the vicious circle that the government has caught up in.
Let's continue the conversation. Thank you, Padma, for that perspective. And you guys, with regards to the popularity of the government now, the Sri Lankan government, we do know about its indebtedness to China to make sure that they have some kind of to pay back various desperate measures, such as the 80% sale of the stakes there at the port in Hambantota. But this is causing concern, as we've mentioned. It's leading to the current government being unpopular. What do we make of that? Is this going to make it even a situation from bad to worse? Let's start with you, Nuban, first.
Can you get back to me the features? Hello?
Yeah, Mr. Nuban, go ahead. I was going to ask you about this move. Is it making the Sri Lanka's government more unpopular now with this because they owe this kind of debt to China? What is this move signifying there for the people there?
Yeah. Because previously during the presidential campaign in 2015, government clearly said that accused from a regime that they have a lot of direct involvement with the China, and they have more FDIs coming from China, and after they've taken over, they have promised that they will reverse whatever the previous government do, and they will look forward to the USA and the Europe countries. Suddenly, the current government is, they have turned back to the China, and all of a sudden, people are raising concern that, most of the people who are just Sinhala Tamil speaking people who are not living in Colombo or city areas, they will clearly ask questions why the southern government is talking about China and all that. They have promised that we will be a free country of Chinese government. So there are some talks going among the people that
Right. Let's get the same question to Mr. Iqbal. Same thing, is moves like this, is it going to make the government there in Sri Lanka, more unpopular with its relation with China?
Well, in my view, this issue alone is not one that has made the government unpopular.
Right.
No doubt the government is unpopular, but there are a multitude of reasons. Main among them are the promises that were made to people in the election platforms, both at presidential and parliamentary elections. One in particular was to deal with what are called mega cases of bribery and corruption. So 2 years down the road, we haven't seen any arrests or prosecution of those concerned. And now there are allegations that there is a nexus between some of them within the government and the others in the opposition, and they are helping each other. And in addition to that, the question of unemployment, then the deterioration of the law and order situation, crime is on the rise, accidents are on the increase. And one case in point is the lack of discipline. Just weeks earlier, there were fines announced for a variety of offences, including speeding and overtaking vehicles on the wrong side. But when there was a strike, the government appeared to relent over those protests. So there is a lot of uncertainty and destabilization that has set in as a result of these factors.
Iqbal, I have a question along the same lines. It's interesting to hear you speak of the government's growing unpopularity because of a series of moves. But is that likely to strengthen? For the benefit of our viewers, I'd like to explain that the former president, Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, who was in power for 2 terms and was actually the only president to defeat the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam after the long civil war that lasted 30 years. That's just a quick recap for our viewers. He currently sits in the opposition, but he and the the president in power at the moment, President Sirisena, are from the same party. So the party is divided across lines. It's Sri Lanka's oldest party, the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. But coming back to you, Iqbal, Basil Rajapaksa, Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa's brother, has founded a new party. The voices are growing for Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa to come and lead the party. And he has neither said yes nor has he said no. So has the growing unpopularity of President Sirisena's government, as you pointed out, is that likely to lead to better results and perhaps greater success for the new party and for Mr. Mahinda to finally make that crossover?
No, in a scenario like this, you would agree that anyone who exploits the issues that are affecting the people naturally start drawing their support. Now, unlike the previous weeks where former President Rajapaksa has remained aloof where the new party is concerned, he's coming out more openly now. For example, yesterday he told a public rally that he has a party to lead now. And all are looking forward to the local elections, which are to be held before March next year. And that's going to be a very strong litmus test for the popularity of the government as well as the opposition.
So very quickly, I'd like your prognosis from both of you. How likely is it that the local regional elections are going to, or the new party is going to make a dent at those elections? And also very quickly, we all know the third parties in the Sri Lankan political firmament have actually never survived. How likely is this one too, considering it has Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa as a mascot for now?
Firstly, a lot depends on President Sirisena's efforts to unify the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. Since election on the 9th of January last year, one of his main efforts has been to unify, but he has failed so far. A faction has sort of veered away from him. If he does not unify, then his Sri Lanka Freedom Party is going to suffer because they are going to be a divided party. Now the question is, for whom will the electorate vote in such a situation? Logically, they are not going to back the government, particularly in the context of things that are sort of cropping up or growing now. So when you look at it that way, he has a strong chance of strengthening his party during the local elections. Branch organizations are being formed, grassroots level organizations are being formed, people are being appointed as electoral organizers, and they in turn will become the candidates when the elections are due.
Right. All right, and just last thoughts there, Mr. Nuban, as we wrap this up. What are your thoughts, and will this go forward or not?
The future of Mr. Rajapaksa's party, new party.
I have to clear that so far Mr. Rajapaksa has not clearly said that he will join that new party, but clearly that the chairman of that particular party is former Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Pires, and former Minister Basil Rajapaksa clearly said that they will invite former president. But if he agree,
right,
then there will be huge advantage for the former President Rajapaksa. Then because with the current situation, people have lost their faith for the government, because the government has kept.
All right.
So I think if Mahinda Rajapaksa join the new party, they have a chance.
All right. Thank you so much to all of our guests, Mr. Iqbal Athas of the Sunday Times, Novan Sevan from the Rivera Media Group, and of course our senior international correspondent, Padma Rao. We appreciate all of your perspective. That does it for this bulletin. I'm Archit Seshadri. Thanks so much for watching WION. More news and updates right after this.